So it takes you beyond the physical. That's the goal of a metaphor, right? Good metaphor. All right, so if you go to page 89 at the bottom, 44, paragraph 44, the devil, how's the devil works? So he draws, okay, or she uses the word, invites people to the water of death. How? Through pleasures and honors. Okay, these people are not, she's inviting them to the waters of death. So this is not the destructive part of the plan, the diabolical plan here, but it begins through pleasure. And remember how we were talking about the evil spirit? The devil cannot take anything, can make anything new. He can only take what God has created and twist it. So we have the desire that is a very good, everything that we do is directed towards happiness because we want to be happy. We're made for happiness. So we don't reject pleasure. We don't, like I talked about last week, right? That's not what temperance does. It's immoderate, right? Or unreasonable, irrational pleasures. So that's how he fishes. And what does it say? Pleasures and honors of the world, okay? He catches with the hook of pleasure. And remember, she said there's no other way he could catch them. Because the soul by its very nature craves what is good. That's who we are. And so there's something so kind of healing and uplifting about that it is the soul's nature that craves the good. Because out there often among Christians is this notion of that pleasure, the world, it's all bad. So no, it's the good. That's why, like, I think St. John Paul II was one of his legacies is theology of the body, right? And the good of sexuality, to kind of raising that up. It's not something dirty. Okay, so that's how we're hooked. All right, then move to the next page. Okay, so she says, I have told you this because now I'm about to describe those who drown themselves down below in the river. So the pleasure gets you into the river. And that's where the devil works. So these particular attachments, I mean, like, okay, once I commit an action, or I do it over and then commit it multiple times, an attachment is created. Okay, I'm like stuck to it. I'm craving it. My will and emotions are drawn and inclined to it. I want to do it again. Does that make sense? Okay, so like there's a bond that's created. That's what we call, that's a type of love. Every time it's not a helpful love. This is not going to be a helpful type of love. And so now if it's a disordered attachment, that's what the devil is, hooking us with, sensuality. And as we talked about last week, these are all goods, but they're goods of a lower order. And so what happens I become in love with the good at this order, with the type of love that's meant for this level. It becomes my life. And all of these good things, and culture could foster and cultivate that, right? Even in the priesthood, is the priests that are in times past for sure are held up as the ones never take a vacation. They just work they do everything, and so it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's what it means. And so, could something be off about that? Yeah, because my everything is poured into work and output at the expense of higher goods. Well, I've used this example before with a family, woman or man, husband or wife, and they pour themselves into their work, but over time, and this usually happens very much over time, gradually before the frog is cooked, before it realizes it, right? Is that I'm giving myself to my job, right, inordinately. That my wife or husband, my children are being overlooked, right? And then the reaction will be what? Well, I'm just providing for the family, right? I'm doing this good thing. No, you're doing what you want to do. People do what they want to do. People do, that's the way we're made. We do what we want to do. Okay, so all of these things we're hooked on. Now, what's interesting is the second step, the devil's not mentioned anymore. It's like this is all he has to do to get us attached. And remember, I love this. So that's a technical word it's a figurative word in the spiritual life, but it's one that goes way back, St. John of the Cross. It comes from the French attaché, which means to nail to. When you're attached to something, you're like, this is you and the thing you love. Okay? It's like, oh, yeah, that brings it home. That's literally what it means. Okay, so step 2, page 90. I told you this, now I'm going to, because I want to describe those who drown themselves down in the river below. So what happens? They become attached to these honors, these pleasures, whatever it might be. And then their love becomes disordered. They have no concern for anyone or anything but themselves. So their love is sinful. It's missing the mark, literally. That's what it means, I have told you how such as these end. Now I want to show you how they're deluded. Okay, here it is. For in their desire to escape from suffering, they fall into suffering. It seems that to them that following me, that is, keeping to the bridge of my son's word, would be a great burden. So they draw back, afraid of thorns. And now she's introducing a new metaphor. This is because they are blind, and then they can neither see or recognize the truth. Okay, so what happens is you get attached to whatever it might be. Let's just say it's my job right now, and then it begins to disorder my life. And now, since they're attached in such a way, all they want to do, that they have no capacity to separate from this, and so they do everything that they can to escape suffering. So it leads to a fear of letting this thing go. So what this is, I can't have fear unless I care, right? I only have fear when there's a prospect of something that I love being lost, that I'm holding on to. If there's not a threat, there's no fear. Okay, so that's why it has to start with a pleasure here. And then, so she's getting into the thorns of the suffering, and she introduces this new metaphor of a tree that you can't see the top of or the bottom of. And who is this tree? Correct, it's Jesus again. With the metaphor of the bridge, who was the bridge? Jesus. All right, so she's switching metaphors, right? And then she's kind of combining them. So it's like, whoa. And so you can't see the bottom and you can't see the top. Then she goes into that, the soil, the roots are in the soil, and the soil is human nature. The soil is human nature, and so it's like the divine and the human uniting there. And you see how the root, okay, is one thing, and the soil is another thing. They're two separate, but they kind of necessitate each other. And it's kind of a nice illustration of the human and divine nature, right? That they're united, and they kind of have to have each other, but they are at the same time different substances. Does that make sense?
It's like Mary.
What's that?
It's like Mary, human and divine, and then Jesus came from human and divine.
Oh, right, yeah. Right, in the Immaculate, or in the Annunciation, right? Okay. So, and then, if we're trying to approach Jesus because of our fallen because of the world, there's now thorns that come forth, okay, at the base of the tree. And the goal is we're wanting to be united, bonded with Jesus here, represented by this tree. And in the beginning there was not going to be thorns, but now there are thorns. And if you turn to page, this is into today. Okay, page 93. Okay, so she says this. These people may suffer at the hands of others, or from illness or poverty or the instability of the world. They may lose their children or loved ones. All such things are thorns the earth produced because of sin. So these are examples of the thorns in life. But they endure them all. They don't run from the thorns. Remember what she's talking about before? Those people who are attached to the things of the world. Considering by the light of reason, holy faith, that I am goodness itself. So she gives an example there. Turn back to page 90. Okay, and halfway down, it'll be the second full paragraph on page 90, in the middle. But many, when they recognize the world's deceit, return to the tree and cross through the thorn bush. Okay, that's the thorn bush, right? And we just heard what the thorns were. Those are just examples. Like, that means there's a gazillion of them. Like, anything that can fall under, like, the example. See, they're practical examples of ordinary suffering. Okay, those are the thorns. What's the thorn bush? The will's decision. That means our choice. Beforehand, this decision is a thorn bush they seem to encounter when they follow the way of truth. Okay, so the thorns are all of these sufferings, and they're at the base. They're at the base of the tree, who is Christ, and the thorn bush is the will's decision. What makes the will's decision a thorn bush? So that's a metaphor. It's a figurative language again. The thorn bush. What can someone explain that figure?
Because that's difficult to make that decision, like going through a thorn bush.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Any of you been through a thorn bush? Yeah.
Yeah, a little off base. To think of it another way, it's also kind of like when you're in a thorn bush, kind of keeps everything else away. So when your will is connected with the divine, with the Lord, it has a tendency to keep the world out and all desires and pleasures of it.
Yeah.
It kind of protects
Oh,
you.
yeah.
It leaves
Yeah.
scars. It makes you bleed.
Makes you bleed.
Makes you leave scars.
It's painful, right? And so she explains, okay, so what's at battle here? That one is in torment. Conscience always pulls in one direction and sensuality in the other. That there's a conflict that one's experiencing. Like, what's the right thing to do? And where am I being? Where's this other movement that I'm being driven? So, just kind of think about this. For example, the experience of this thorn bush. How our pride. Did we get in an argument with a loved one, right? Say some things that we shouldn't have said, and I'm justified. I'm in the right. I mean, like, that's what you're thinking and feeling. I'm justified. I'm in the right. And maybe you say you were and you said the right thing, but you did it in a way that was not charitable. You were not right. It was punitive. Okay? So sensuality what sensuality would be is like, it would be saying, you're in the right, and they need to apologize to me, and I'm not being respected. That's all. That would be all a part of the sensuality, the things of the senses. But conscience, okay, see, conscience is about the good in itself. So this is the particular situation, sensuality, like that this altercation happened. I said some true words, but in a harsh way, and so it was a particular individual situation. Whenever something's particular, when it's individual, when it can be seen, that's all the sense. That's all the sense world. Sensuality is when it becomes distorted. This situation here, that my emotions or passions are saying that, I'm in the right, is the highest good. So the conscience is directed towards the ultimate good, truth in itself. And so conscience, what would conscience be doing, could be doing in that situation? If our conscience is speaking to us. What would you say?
Being conscious rooted in the truth, focused rooted in the truth, and be rooted, getting back to God.
So it'd be speaking, okay, your conscience be speaking to you. What might your conscience be saying in a situation like that?
You hurt this person.
Uh-huh. Maybe you had part of the responsibility. Maybe you should apologize.
Could have handled it differently. Maybe
Yeah.
you were true what you said, but you still weren't sure.
You're not just seeing one aspect of it, right? It opens you up to seeing it more fully. And what do we want to do with, like, what do we keep for a while? It's a battle, right?
Yeah.
Like interiorly.
We wanna get even.
Yeah, but what about like, and then inside though, it's like at night, I'm thinking about it. I want to quit thinking about it.
You start feeling remorse.
Yeah.
It's still nagging at you.
Yeah, it's nagging at you, but you want to shuck it off. But you can't shuck it off, right? You can't shuck it off. And the only way you can shuck it off over time is to harden your heart. But that's gonna take a long time, because we're violating something. And so if I get to the point where this is an example of sin, where the thorn bush could be, and that for me to go and apologize, it might be going against everything that's within me, right? And so that will's decision to do that feels like walking into a thorn bush, right? That's what she's talking about. On an area of where something's not a sin, so the Lord might be inviting us to do something, and we like kind of our life the way it is right now, and the Lord's inviting us, and we want to follow the Lord, and it would not be a sin. It would not be a sin if we said no. That's what, like for example, religious life, right? It's not a sin to say no. So I can tell from a 5-year experience of being very attached to wanting to get married, and being in a relationship, moving towards marriage, and feeling drawn or attracted, because God draws us and attracts us, right, to priesthood, and the conflict and torment that I experienced. I didn't have peace of mind or peace of heart for a number of years there, and the reason was, for me, why there was a conflict and I was trying to flee from it, is that I was seeking myself first. Okay, but in that situation, there's some areas of life it's not a sin, but the Lord is inviting us to do something, to act, and the experience of it is going to be like walking into a thorn bush. But you get to the point though, if it's not about the thorn bush, we're not preoccupied by the thorn bush, but it's about going to Jesus, like that makes a big difference. It's like, oh, because it's easy to think the only thing before me is the suffering. And that's all I see. No, I mean, can you see beyond the suffering? Like, where is it leading? And so that's why a person who is truly in love with another or with God, the suffering is light. And if they know it pleases the other, they're happy to go through the thorns. But if I don't see the object, or I don't see the goal, I don't see the Lord here, but my preoccupation is with the suffering, and this is another way that the evil spirit will work, is like, if you're being inclined, if the thought comes to you to be doing, invested more in some area of life, or the evil spirit can use our imagination and the senses to bring to mind, like, how horrible that's going to be to give this thing up. How horrible it would be to admit that you were wrong and apologize to the other person. And so it breeds fear. It breeds fear in there. Okay. If you turn to page 91 at the top. They cannot escape suffering by flight, for no one can pass through this life. So all they're trying to do is escape suffering without a cross, except those who keep to the bridge. Not that those who cross over without suffering, but for them suffering is refreshing. Well, how could it be refreshing? Refreshing? Really?
Sort of a sense of forgiveness, you know.
Mm-hmm. 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 Doing the right thing can often entail suffering, right? But there comes a way, it's like, I know I did the right thing, and even though it's painful, people were hurt, like, I feel really good about it. It was refreshing. Like if you're parents and you're and you have to communicate a hard truth or a punishment to a kid, it's like you want your kids to love you, right? And you know that they're gonna lash out at you, but you do the right thing and you're pained, but because your love is ordered rightly, this whole experience is, there's a refreshingness that one experiences because they've done right. Yeah.
You know, the boys sound not exactly model, but cliche. He ain't heavy, Father, he's my brother.
Mm-hmm.
It's the love
Yeah.
that makes it refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're on the way to the ultimate good.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's hard.
And it's hard because it's like, until there's some real development in the spiritual life, and some experience, all you see is the thorn bush. You haven't, to taste is to see. And so you haven't tasted any of the good, all you taste is the brambles. So it's really there's an incredible act of faith. That's why she keeps talking about how we're blinded. Our sensuality has blinded us. And so you notice then, I have shown you how these souls are deceived by their disordered fear. Okay, so in none of this part in regards to fear does she mention the devil. The devil's work is in the beginning towards pleasure. This is something I want. Then, once we have the attachment, we have fear of losing that thing. And so he can go on to someone else after that. Because it's gonna lead to fleeing from anything that's uncomfortable. Any questions? Okay. So we, on paragraph 45, she keeps digging deeper into sensuality, selfish sensuality. And so obviously she likes that term, but it can be used in a specific way to just like physicality. And oftentimes those things associated with eating, drinking, or sex. But in an extended sense, sensuality applies to all created goods. Okay? And remember, senses is good. Sensuality, the way she's using it, is used in a negative sense, right? Meaning what?
Attachment.
Yep.
Physical goods.
Yeah.
Disordered attachment.
Yeah, disordered attachment. And to basically all created goods. How do you know if you've got some of that sensuality? How do you see it in yourselves?
I guess like you said, the fear of losing it, or I guess for me, a practical example is
Mhm.
like whatever distracts me from prayer. Like when I have time in the evening to sit down and pray, what's the thing that distracts me?
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my attachment. Then
Yeah.
I can see what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some manifestations? Because the goal here is not to understand the concepts, it's to be able to go hunting and to see the rabbits and to shoot them. Okay? I can't use that? Okay. Another metaphor.
I see it as an obsession.
A type of obsession?
Obsessed with it.
Mhm.
Can't let it go.
Yeah.
Overconfidence?
Okay, an overconfidence? And what does that look like?
You think you're above everything else and you've already solved your own problems,
Mhm.
so you're overconfident.
And so what would that look like as far as like, how would it be manifested in a situation for you? You can think about it.
Yeah.
I can give you an example of just a sensuality. So many of my examples are around coffee. It's kind of benign, so I can use that and it can be extended to all things sensual. Yeah, it's not scandalous sensuality. I don't have to. Anyway. So, okay, I had, for years, I've kind of developed, the first thing I do is like make a cup of coffee, and then I would never like bring coffee into prayer, praying in front of the Blessed Sacrament. I'm not saying that's bad or anything like that, but a number of years ago I started like bringing coffee to my holy hour right in the morning, first thing in the morning, and over time, and I just got to seeing and experiencing myself as like, I wasn't looking forward as much to going to prayer as the coffee. Like I saw it, I mean, I just noticed it, and it just like, well, it took me a while before I was like, would acknowledge it and like, that's ringing true for me. and fighting it and resisting it. And then kind of the thought of like, is some of the consolation in my prayer really coming from just the hit of coffee? It's like, right? So I finally got to the point, probably about 6 weeks ago. So I don't bring coffee to my holy hour in the morning, right? I drink maybe my first cup after my prayer, and it has been refreshing, but it has not been pleasant.
Because you were thinking about
I know it's the right thing, yeah. And my prayer has been, my holy hour has been so distracted in the morning. Like, and so you would think it's like, oh, I should go back to drinking coffee. Well, I was taking a look at how the fruits have been manifesting throughout the day. Is like, I have no doubt, like, it's producing great fruit. I can see it. But in the prayer itself, my habit of having the coffee there, something to me is throwing a fit, and I'm distracted, and right. But I kind of keep coming back. So
Your holy hour seems like 2.
Yeah. Hard to meditate. Yeah. Not many insights. So I'm just kind of illustrating an example of like this notion of like there's a refreshingness here, but when there was the attachment, there was a fear of not having it, right? And I can't go do this or do that because I got to have my coffee the first thing in the morning with my prayer. So it's like, don't mess with that. You know what I'm saying?
Get comfortable.
Yeah. So it's about noticing the movements in the heart here. Okay. On 91, second paragraph, no one born, or on paragraph 45, in section, the second paragraph of 45, no one born into this life passes through it without suffering of body and spirit. My servants may suffer physically, but their spirit is free. In other words, suffering does not weary them because their will is in tune with mine. And that gets back to kind of what Angela said at Boys Town, that he's not heavy, he's my brother, right? And you probably can think about in a similar way, the many miles that Father Capon, carried the wounded soldier, right? Why was he able to do that? Because of what we call a heroic love of God. His will and God's will were united. It is the will that causes the deeper pain. So just think about those things when you're disturbed and you don't have peace in your heart. Why don't you have peace in your heart? Because there's a battle going on, and it's like I'm gonna not do it according to what my conscience says, and it causes us a lot of pain and distress. And interesting. So what is this experience of the interior conflict and the resistance to what conscience says to do, and my pride? I'm going to hold on to that in whatever the situation is. They already taste in this life of the pledge of hell. So we're already experiencing a pledge of hell. And then they suffer spiritually as well as physically. So they're going to suffer physically, like everybody else does, but these people are going to suffer spiritually. Spiritually means it has to do with our intellect and our will, our mind and our will. And so if we're doing the right thing, we're in harmony with God. We're right. And so you don't suffer in that level. Physically, you suffer though, right? And you can think about this just like people who have a physical ailment that some people are carry it in such a way, like you can see there's a surrender, there's a peace. And then another person's the same physical ailment, and they're a tormented soul. God's abandoned them. Well, this other person, I promise you, feels in some way that God has abandoned them too. So what's the difference between these two?
Hope,
Hope,
there's light.
yeah,
You know, after they go through this, there will be a light, because that light, even though when they're suffering, they don't see that light. It's invisible, but they can feel that light.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I think sacrificial suffering can be a great source of grace. When you think like Jesus on the cross.
yeah,
It's like, he didn't want that either, but it's like I
Yeah.
get to do God's will.
yeah,
So it's like when I suffer, am I doing my will or God's will? My will is like, I don't want the suffering.
Yeah.
If I'm upset, I got it, I'm mad about it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do anything to get rid of it. But if I come with the attitude, okay, God, I'll take this as your will for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I'll offer it up to you. It's a great form of grace.
yeah, yeah, right. And so, and then, yeah, George, going back to your, example of Jesus, it's like, what does he say on the cross? My God, why have you forsaken me? And then what are his last words? Into your hands
I commend my spirit.
It's like, that's the whole mystery right there for us. So both of those people experience abandonment. But what's the difference? The gifts of the Holy Spirit, God's strength, grace, inclines you to surrender to God, right? And there's even a refreshment in that sense.
To trust in his will, and then that's where the
Yeah.
patience and peace come, those two virtues.
Yeah.
You'll flow at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
As opposed to just being totally upset, outraged, just
Mhm.
losing it.
Mm-hmm. And so when we see that in ourselves throwing a fit, we can kind of like, oh, okay, what's going on here? What's going on here? Why am I reacting like this? And it can be just in the basic things of each and every day of just like, this is my schedule for the day, right? And so you plan your day in, and then everything goes in a different direction. And so it was truly a bad day. Okay, here, because I was trying to run from the thorns. But what if I could look at all of the disruptions and the things that went wrong to this day as just the thorns and the thorn bush to get to Jesus' will? And at the end of the day, it's like, no, it was a good day. There's refreshment. Why was it a bad day? Why was it for this person who's like, nothing goes right?
Because you lost control.
Yeah, because you're living according to sensuality and you're running from,
The thorns.
you want your own selfish will.
Yeah.
Okay, so the homework is like, if you can just, don't make this complicated, don't look for the perfect thing, something practical from the teachings of Catherine today and what we talked about that you can do one time. Do one time. Okay, so an example might be as far as just like connecting with Jesus here as the tree, and he's united with our human nature, and the thorn bush and the thorns. That I do like to schedule my day, and if I don't get to stay true to my routine, I get disturbed, and so it feels like it's going to be a day that I'm not going to get much done. So it wasn't a great day. Well, and so today is going to be like that for me in a certain sense because my niece, goddaughter's getting married, right? And so I'd rather be working, honestly. No, I just like working. And so it's going to be many, many hours with family, and which is fine. But like, it's like, think of all the stuff I'm not going to get done, right? Okay, but like, there's a problem there, right? And so for me, the thorns that have been produced here are my inclination to make this an ultimate good, my ultimate good for the day, and not his will. What's got Jesus' will? And I've already been doing this this morning. It's like, no, the Lord wants me to be present and involved. And is that going to be pleasing to me at the sensual level? Probably. here and there. Depends how much. Depends how much bourbon I drink. Okay. No, I told myself I'm not having cake because I'll just go eat it and be comatose. But there'll be a rightness, a refreshment that comes from, no, this is what the Lord wanted me to do.
Fried chicken.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
So it's just a little
exactly.
practice. Okay, we will meet next week, and go ahead and read number 46. So that's paragraph 46, which is pages 94 through 96. Okay?
What about the following week?
Yeah, then we'll probably take another a week break, then we'll come back. So, what? Oh, the Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Go in peace.
Thanks.